Hey there, welcome to Live Happily Ever Now. I am your host, Carrie Briggs. If you found this podcast, that is no accident. It means that you're ready to feel good, heal your life, and manifest the life of your dreams. I can't wait. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Live Happily Ever Now. I am your host, Carrie Briggs. I'm so very excited for this week's guest. She has been helping me, even if she doesn't realize it, on the back end with a lot with my children. So she's an incredible human being. She works with especially spiritual mothers. I don't know if it's just spiritual mothers, but like mothers in general with raising babies and all the things. So I'm very excited to hand it over to Natalia. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Natalia Wiatr. I'm a spiritual parenting coach. I'm from Poland. I also work as a teacher at primary school, so combining like business and work and being a mom. Yeah, what do you want me to say?
So like so you're a spiritual parenting coach, which is freaking amazing. And I think that we all need this. And I was just talking to her before we started recording about this topic that's been coming up frequently in my life. And I know a lot of my listeners are going to resonate with this. It's this idea of like, first of all, if we have a spiritual business, that's hard. If we're raising children, we add that into the mix, that's even harder. And then you add your healing, your own personal healing journey. It's like this recipe for disaster. And like it is messy. It's a very messy way. But I really love to talk about this whole like raising, reparenting yourself while parenting your children, while like keeping the spiritual aspect in it. And how did you get started doing this? Like, I guess that's my first question is how did you get started on this journey?
So yeah, most those those transforming journeys start with a disaster, as you said.
Yeah.
So there was a time when my son was 2, my firstborn, and I was trying. I just got back to work. I was trying to combine being a new mom and working full time. Like he was 1 when I started work, so it was 1 year into trying to combine that. And I still was in that perfectionist mode that I wanted to do it all. I wanted to be the perfect mom, the perfect employee, perfect for everyone. And there was a lot going on. I work at a state school, and there was a lot going on in the government, in the school system, and all that combined. Um, like there was even a teacher strike which lasted for like 3 weeks or so. It was terrible.
It's a lot.
Yeah. And all that social pressure on us, and I ended up with a nervous breakdown. So I reached out to a psychologist that I knew from the times when I was a teen, and uh, she pulled me into a full-time, like a day-by-day therapy. And after 3 months of that therapy, like it helped me a lot because I discovered emotional regulation. Also, why that therapy worked, because I decided, because I saw how my anxiety, my emotions were influencing my son. He was 2. He suddenly, like during that teacher strike, he started being much more clingy. He wouldn't let me go. He wouldn't stay at daycare. He had sleeping problems. So he like soaked up all of my anxiety and stress and even like depressive episodes. Like it all influenced how he behaved and felt. So I made that decision that my anxiety is no longer working for me, so I need to do something about that. And I really, when I discovered the process of emotional regulation, that pushed me forward. um, by that time I also started blogging about parenting, and I moved into that direction, that more psychological, emotional aspect of parenting. And then I got pregnant with my second child. So while I was at home, while pregnant, I developed my blog. I did a coaching course. So I started as a regular psychology oriented parenting coach, focus more on that approach we would call like gentle, mindful parenting, conscious parenting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was like self-taught. I just made
Mhm.
a coaching certification, and all the parenting stuff was just my working experience, my studies, and my like self-study that I did
Mhm.
at home while blogging. Um, so later, like mentor after mentor, I grew more into that spiritual context of coaching, into that spiritual world. And right now, I'm like 100% woo-woo lady.
Yes. Mhm.
Working with energies, working with like even today, like no, last night I connected with dragons on my own for the first time. So that was that's pretty amazing.
Mhm.
Where I got like it was like 4 years ago, and I'm a totally like, three like 180 degrees different person right now.
Mhm. It's crazy. I love the dragons. Like, I don't know if this is your first time. I mean, I am like, as far, I'm very spiritual, as you know. I mean, this is why we're here, and I work with dragons. But it's so interesting because years ago, if you told me I was going to be working with dragons, I'd be like, are you crazy? Like, there's no way I'm going to be working. Like, what? Like, I can barely tolerate Reiki right now. Working with dragons. So I love that, and I love everything that you said. I'm gonna start with like the nervous breakdown, because I feel like so many of us had our spiritual awakening because of a breakdown. I remember, yeah, go ahead.
My spiritual awakening, I didn't mention that. It was
Mhm.
actually during birthing my daughter. So it was like the very beginning of the pandemic where
Mhm.
everybody was freaking out. Like the instances of COVID were really few, just a few
Mhm.
of them in the country, but everyone was panicking. And the nurses, the midwives, the doctors, they were all like, oh, just make sure everybody is healthy. So it was the first time I was with my husband. The second time I was only on my own, and that allowed me to like connect with my body. And also the doctor that was on duty on that night, uh, he was the worst doctor in the whole hospital, and I was terrified. I was so terrified that I when the midwife told me his name, I set up um and told her, okay, I'm packing my bag and going back home, I'm coming next morning.
Been there. Totally understand that.
And then
Mhm.
yeah, and then the next thing I told to her was, let's do it just the two of us,
Mhm.
and do it so fast that he doesn't get to come here and see me during the actual, push.
Mhm. Mhm. That is that. I mean, I have chills right now, and I'll explain my like thing in a minute, but that is freaking amazing. All of that. So my spiritual awakening, like as well, was a breakdown when I was pregnant with my daughter. So I always talk about how my daughter was like, when I became the moment I became pregnant with my daughter is when my spiritual awakening started happening. I didn't realize it, but I remember this very one incident. I was never allowed to cry growing up. I was raised by a narcissistic mother. I was like, crying was ashamed because I took attention away from her. So my husband had never seen me cry. I had 2 children before this because my 2 boys are older, and all of my kids are 18 months apart. And I had severe postpartum depression. I had just had a miscarriage, and I became pregnant with my daughter. And something like, so all of this is happening once. I also started a brand new business on top of all of these things in like a 6 month period. So it was like halfway through my pregnancy, and I remember having a full emotional mental breakdown. I can't fucking do this. And I literally collapsed on the ground and I started sobbing. And I'm like, something is fucking wrong. I cannot keep going like this. And like that moment, I remember it so vividly because I was in so much pain, like emotional, spiritual pain. And all of a sudden, like after that, I don't remember like the exact moments after that, but I remember after that, like my spiritual awakening started happening. I started learning all these things and all this stuff started coming up. And then when I had my daughter, it was a very similar experience. I was actually working because I sold clothes online, and I was on a live video while I was in labor with her, because this is what we had to do. We had to work because that was the hustle culture. It was like the network marketing. You have to work. And my husband was selling, and I was like on the birthing ball, literally in labor, because my midwife told me earlier I wasn't having her today. And I'm like, no, I am, because she was my third baby and I knew. So we get to the hospital and I had her within a half an hour, and I had her so fast the midwives couldn't even catch her because she was like all the things. So like the spiritual awakening with the girls, man. They totally activate everything within inside of you. And then she has shown me time and time again, that like she was my spiritual awakening. She's like a little angel, devil, dark dragon baby, all in one thing. And then like, not to like flip flop all around, but I really want to talk about this other, like the emotional regulation. So I didn't know much about this, and I started learning a lot in my second son. So my older son, he was like, I call him my trick baby because he was super, like, he's just an easy baby. He's a good kid, older kid. Like, there was no like random emotions with him. My second child, I swear, as soon as I became pregnant with my daughter, he turned into this emotional monster. And he has taught me so much about emotional regulation, because you're explaining like your first son, like he soaked up all the emotions. He became super clingy. He had like lots of outbursts, severe depressive episodes. And I'm like, what is wrong? Like, how am I feeling as a parent that this child is having, like, I'm a spiritual teacher, I'm a spiritual mentor. How is my child so negative, having massive outbursts? He's like constantly says he hates the world, he hates us, all of these things. So when I started learning about emotional regulation and regulating my own nervous system, I realized that he was having like this side effect of me regulating my nervous system. So I started teaching him how to like not like in his face teach him, but like kind of teach him like, oh, did you try this type of thing? And watching him learn how to regulate his nervous system as a tiny person during massive outbursts has changed our life. And it has been like, I say it all the time, like if we were taught emotional regulation as children, we would not be messed up human like adults. And it's one of the biggest, and I freaking love it. Like it has changed so many things. So I would like, do you want to talk more on the emotional regulation piece?
Yeah, so that's exactly why I focus on that one topic at the beginning of my coaching journey, because like I had exactly the same thought that if we teach parents emotional regulation, they will show that to their kids, and then the next generation won't be so messed up.
Exactly. We're just like a little bit at a time.
Yes. One parent, one mama at a time. Like so my first course was about emotional regulation. I like looked at many like psychological journals, articles, and there were some steps, some points, like what do you do to regulate your emotions. So I combined, like I took those that were in the largest number of psychological articles, and I combined my own list and made an acronym steps to make it easier to remember. So number one, S is your emotional state. So you need to realize what you're feeling, because sometimes we just get consumed by the emotion, like anger. Anger is like level hard.
Yes.
So you need to, like, I usually tell people, like, you need to practice with milder emotions. Like when you feel calmer, when you just feel like a little bit anxious or stressed, practice that every now and then. It's just like mindfulness, trying to notice what am I feeling right now. And then when you get into that spiral of anger, it will be easier for you because you will be building up that mindfulness muscle.
Exactly.
So, and that's the hardest part, to regulate yourself, noticing what you're feeling. Because when you acknowledge what emotions are raging in your body, then you can do anything about them.
It's like people say, like, yeah, like you're not supposed to meditate just when it's hard. Like you meditate all the time so that when it is hard, it's easy. Like you can breathe through it, type of thing.
Yeah. So if someone says, I cannot meditate because I'm too stressed, well, try meditating when you're not stressed first.
Exactly. That's what I say all the time.
Yeah. So the second step is letter T for triggers. So when you notice you're angry, ask yourself why. What is making me angry? And it's not on the outside. That's the tip. It's not on the outside. It might seem like your kid's behavior is making you angry, but actually the behavior is triggering your thoughts, and your thoughts are creating the emotion. So for example, I always give the example of shoes in the hall. So when your kids come back home and everybody just drops their shoes in the middle of the hall and run into their rooms,
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So one mom will think my kids are disrespectful
Mm-hmm.
and she will get angry. Another mom will think, oh my goodness, there's so much on my plate. And now I even have to pick up their shoes for them. And that mom will get overwhelmed. Another mom will think, oh, my kids feel safe in the house that I built for them. And she won't mind picking up those shoes.
Mm-hmm. I've watched as you're explaining that. I used to be the mom that used like the disrespect, and now I'm the mom that like I have the awareness. They feel safe enough to do that. So that's really cool.
Yeah, because what happened to us and our generation, we would usually be scolded for like leaving the
Mm-hmm.
shoes, not hanging the coat, um, anything.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody like because it just had to be the certain way. And because we were told that it has to be the certain way, that's why we get triggered when our kids repeat the same things that we were scolded for.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy. Mine was the backpack. If our backpack wasn't hung up the right way, then we always got in trouble for it. And that's one of the things that always got me is like, our backpack doesn't belong on the floor. But now it's like watching this, and I hate and I love that I have awareness around this. I tell Aaron all the time, one of our mentors, that like sometimes I wish I lived in an ignorance bliss bubble and didn't have an awareness about all my reactions, because I notice thanks to like all of the work. Because again, I'm like self-taught and I've done things with you a little bit. Like I've taken little pieces and parts that I'm realizing in my children that it's not actually them that's triggering me. It's, being raised by a narcissistic mother or a father who wasn't, emotionally present, and having like being told I had, also being the oldest, like it was all responsible, like it was all put on me. So when I look at my kids and I get triggered, it takes me like, I have to take a beat, take a minute and be like, okay, so actually I'm not actually mad that you didn't pick up your backpack. Like that has nothing to do with you. However, like I'm gonna go take a minute, process this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So is it just what's the other steps in the, because you have the S and the T? Is there more?
Yeah. So these are like the hardest ones because
Yeah.
like, you need to first of all have that mindfulness muscle to notice your emotion. Then you have to have enough of the inner awareness
Mm-hmm.
to notice what is actually triggering that emotion and knowing that it's not the child, it's my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And the thoughts are usually like part of our past experience. So it goes all like back to our childhood. Then when you realize it's like, oh, that's why I'm feeling this way. And it's totally understandable that I feel this way, knowing that I had this and that experience in my childhood. Then the letter E stands for empathy. But in order to feel empathy for someone else, you first need to feel empathy for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So you empathize with yourself feeling angry, just as if you were your best. Imagine if your best friend was having such a moment. Imagine if your child was having such a moment. Just empathize with yourself, hug yourself, tap yourself on the back.
Everybody should give each other a hug right now.
You're doing a great way, great work, like working
Mm-hmm.
through those emotions. So this is actually a very um quite difficult at first.
Like that
It's very simple,
self-compassion.
but it might not be easy
Mm-hmm.
because we are not used to doing that. So empathize with yourself. And then when you do that, the letter P is for perking up. So you do something to change your vibe, to do the opposite, to get into the opposite emotion. Like when you're angry, do something calming. And
Mm-hmm.
with anger, there's also that release of energy because of the adrenaline. So with anger, you need to do something physical,
Mm-hmm.
like shake your body, go running, go for a walk, uh, tidy up your house. That's what my
Cleaning,
cousin does.
anger cleaning.
Yeah, she always cleans when she's angry. And it's good because it gets physical.
Mm-hmm.
And with all other emotions, in emotional regulation is a universal process. So when you're sad, you can do something that cheers you up. When you're stressed, you can do something deeply relaxing. When you're anxious, you can do something that helps you find that feeling of security. Um, when you're overwhelmed, just do something to, like, I don't know,
Make a
make a
list.
to-do list. Yeah.
That's what I'm learning. I love when I learn things in these calls. Because I never, like, yes, I've made these connections, but I'm like, oh, there's actually a reason why I work out when I'm angry. Oh, there's actually a reason that I want to go meditate when I'm stressed or make a list when I'm overwhelmed. It's the
Yeah,
opposites. Mm-hmm.
exactly. But first, you need to acknowledge what you're
Mm-hmm.
feeling, find the triggers, empathize with yourself. You can even, like, during the empathize part, you can even go into a meditation and connect with your inner child or
Mm-hmm.
your inner teenager, whoever feels the most triggered at that moment, and empathize with them if that makes it easier for you.
I love that. I love that. And one of the things I say is it's a mantra that I learned a long time ago when I'm in that like empathy state. It's like one of them is like, I understand I've chosen wrongly. I choose again. I choose love. And it's just like it brings myself back to me, be like, I am human. Like I am going to have a human reaction sometimes, but I still love me. And I think self-compassion is one of the hardest things that not only just anybody has, but especially mothers. It's this like, because this society is set up for us to fail. Like we are set up to fail as mothers. There is no support. I mean, we have zero support with our children. It is me 24/7. We don't have grandparents who watch our kids. We don't have aunts and uncles or babysitters and nannies. So for me, the self-compassion piece has been the hardest one to really like step into. I'm like, what steps do I do? I'm like, I understand the S, the T, the empathy is definitely the hardest one for me because it's like, I'm a bad mom. That's where I go. It always goes to, I'm a bad mom. I'm failing. And then I'll have to take a step back and be like, I'll pay for your therapy. I understand. I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, and that's something I do actually talk to my kids about because they're a little bit older now. I'll talk to them and be like, honey, I have never been your parent in this moment in time ever before. I have no idea what I'm doing. And I think because like the older ones are tested because they're 9, he just turned 8 on Friday. So 9, 8, and 6. So they're like at that place where they can kind of understand. And I tell them, I'm like, you've never been my child at this moment in time before. Yes, you spiritually chose me at some point, but like we have no idea what we're doing. So, but having that empathy piece is just like the biggest one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we've done like through emotional state, triggers, empathy, and perk up, and we are regulated. So
Mm-hmm.
what's the next step? The final one, letter S. It's solutions. So this is when you are when your nervous system is back to like the parasympathetic
Mm-hmm.
part of the system. Now you can take action. And if you have yelled at your kid 5 minutes before, the first thing you do is to apologize.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing to do is count to 4 and come up with 4 positive interactions you can do with your child by bedtime.
Mm.
Because our brain, our mind, like our mind's job, the subconscious mind's job is to keep us safe. So it's wired to notice the negative things 5 times better than the positive things. So in order to make up for 1 negative interaction, you need to do 5 positive interactions.
It's a lot, but it makes a lot of sense. That's a really good tip. Mm-hmm.
Not a lot.
Mm-hmm. It's not a lot. In the moment when you're in the anger, I mean, before you get to the EPS, it's gonna feel like a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it will. But at the end, like even simple things like a hug, like making their favorite snack for the tea time, like getting them, I don't know, playing a game with them. So that doesn't mean you have to spend like 30 minutes doing 4 different activities with them. And all the other kids are just getting crazy in the other
Mm-hmm.
room. No, you can do simple things. Like just say, honey, I love you, or I love the way you do art. I really enjoy looking at the picture you created. So it can be really simple things and not really a lot of time. It's just like, during the day, you interact with your kids, just make sure it's positive. And there are 4 things. So I read that tip somewhere online some time ago, and I use it in my um, Stop Yelling challenge I ran 2 years ago, that you can use hair ties. So take 5 hair ties and put them on your right wrist. And when you yell at your kids, you put them on your left wrist. And then for each positive interaction, you put one back on the right one. And if all the hair ties are on your right hand by evening, you're perfectly okay.
I think that's a really key point you brought up, is that it doesn't have to be 30-minute long interactions. And of course, my human self was like, I can't do that. That's like I'd spend 6 hours apologizing to my kids because I have 3 kids and I yell at all of them. But and like the little things, and we do little things. Like my daughter, like her favorite thing is like, oh, she wants to play makeup, or she wants to play tea time or something. Like that's a quick, easy interaction. Or like her art self, or my son, like he loves to do like his Rubik, like I helped him fix his Rubik's Cube yesterday and it made his day. So like little things like that. But we think as parents, oh my God, it's going to take 6 hours to make up to my children, and the other 2 are going to go insane and kill each other. Like that's not going to happen. And then it's going to be an endless cycle of yelling and apologizing and trying to fix it all. But I feel like for everybody out there, understanding, like, because a lot of us have young moms, we're like spiritual business, young moms doing all the things, we're going to be so hard on ourselves. So having this, like the quick interactions, I love the hair tie idea. That is amazing. I mean, I always have hair ties on my arm, so that's a beautiful, quick little switch back and forth. It might be constantly back and forth, but we can do it.
Well, if you do that for 2-3 days, then at some point it will just click and you will stop yourself from yelling before you put the hair ties on your left wrist.
It's like the hitting yourself with a rubber band.
Yeah, exactly. You create that anchor somehow, like you know.
Oh, I love that. It's a beautiful tip.
Yeah, also if you have like multiple kids, why I mentioned those hair ties, because we tend to get like, one kid is more needy that day and she will like come and make sure we do those positive interactions, while the other kid will stay hyper focused on some Lego blocks project for 4 hours.
Yep.
And you will have no interaction throughout the day. Then he will come out of his cave hyper stimulated, do something hyper, you yell at them, and then you realize you haven't had any positive interaction throughout the day. So that's why those hair ties are useful, because you remember about every kid, and don't forget about those quiet ones.
That's exactly, you explained my second son to a T. He hyperfixates on something. He comes out because he's been hyperfixated, like his Rubik's cubes, slime, like things where he can just like be by himself. And then he comes out and he's like this, I don't want to say monster. He's got a lot of energy because he's been so focused for like me. Like that's why he triggers me, is because he's just like me when I was a kid and I couldn't express myself. And so realizing, oh wait, I actually haven't spent time with him. That's a really good, beautiful awareness to have.
So see, even if he comes up hyperactive and you suddenly feel triggered and you snap, that may actually lead to something good, because then you will be forced to do those 4 to 5 positive interactions with him.
Yes, it is. That's very, oh, I love this. Before I get too lost, can we provide this STAPS steps in the at the end for all the listeners? I'll make sure that we get all the information there, just because I know they're going to ask about it. I love this so much. So before we wrap it up, I just want to tie in this like last little spiritual piece. So what is your biggest realization you've had around spirituality and raising children?
Oh, difficult to say. Like I had so many throughout like the past year or the past 6 months, like children are mirrors. Children are mirrors. So whatever triggers you, it is there so that you can see something, see an area of yourself that's going to be healed right now. So this is exactly something I talked to one of my clients recently, that she went through a really hard situation. Like her child was like in a public place, she was having such a difficult meltdown, and she said, like, I totally failed at that. And I was like, no, you didn't. it was just to show you an area of, we actually worked through that in a session, that it was just to show you an area of your own healing journey that you're going to step into right now.
Children are our mirror is 1000%. And it is, I think that is one of the biggest gifts I've been given, is understanding that, because there are times like my second son triggers me to an ungodly level. And I know this, and I know it's because he is allowed, like I said earlier, he is allowed to express himself, and I wasn't allowed to express myself. I was shamed and shot down and, told to be quiet and keep small for having opinions, for having energy, for trying to express all of my emotions. So if every time he has those like big emotional outbursts, it triggers the ever loving heck out of me, because I wasn't allowed to. So like having these awareness, same thing with my daughter. Like my daughter is, if I could like describe her, she's like a unicorn fairy princess. She calls herself a queen. She walks around like she was singing about queens and how we all love like this. She's just like the most free spirited version of myself I could ever be. In the beginning, it used to like, I'm like, not okay. I'm like, this is not okay. But that's just like, because I wasn't allowed to do that. Like I wasn't allowed to wear tutus and crowns and all the things out in public and start dancing. Like she's the kid in the middle of the grocery store who will start breakdancing. Like that's my child. Like I wasn't allowed to be that because I was embarrassing. So I'm like watching all of my kids, and every time they're triggering me, I take a step back and be like, oh, that's on me, boo. Like, this is for me. And it's been so beautiful and so healing. Like I said, I'm reparenting myself while parenting my children. And it's exhausting. It's a trip, but it's also so beautiful, because the next generation it's not going to be as hard for my children to parent their kids because of the work that we're doing now. It's beautiful. I am loving all of this. Is there like one piece of advice you want to give to everybody before we wrap this up?
Again, difficult to say.
I know.
Just to pick one thing.
The mirror one is really good, but like, is there one?
Yeah. I think it's about that stepping back, what you just said, that whenever something happens that you feel like you need to take back control because you feel out of control, just step back and realize like you're not getting out of control, or they're not getting out of control. They just need more connection at this moment. So just go through the steps, realize what you're feeling, what they're feeling, and is there anything to be done?
I love that. So we're going to include all of your links to all of the things so everybody can find you and reach out to you and get some beautiful parenting advice, because we all need that. This has been absolutely incredible. I'm so grateful for having you on here. This is going to be amazing. I'm so excited. And yes, so everybody for listening, thank you so much. I will see you next week. I love you. Bye. If you made it to the end of this episode, that means you are truly committed to your goals and open to miracles. I am so proud of you. If you want to get more Carrie, make sure you subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an episode. Your experience means a lot to me, so I welcome you to leave an honest review. And you can follow me on social media at Carrie Briggs Coaching. If you really want to get in on the action, sign up for my monthly membership, Unlock Yourself, or reach out for more powerful one-on-one work. I love you all so much. See you next time.